Hello Internet, I'm Dan.
And I'm Chaz.
This is the Wine is Serious Business Show, episode 59. We've got another exciting show tonight. We've got our friend Grant back as a guest, almost more or less as an expert in this case, because we got some samples. Thanks again to Constance. We got some samples, one from Greek, one from Italy, but we're exploring wines from Santorini, a little Greek island, which should be really exciting. One Italian wine to compare it to. Can you give us a little introduction to Santorini?
Sure. Most people know Santorini was a volcano that blew up, like what, 3,600 years ago? Wiped out the Minoans, wiped out everybody living on the island.
Minoans, that's what I was failing to.
Yeah,
there you go.
on Crete.
Yep.
And so now it's this, it's the island made of primarily limestone and slate, right? And
nice.
so it makes a really unique
I guess
growing
rocks.
Environment. Yep. Very cool. Those are
Slate,
rocks. Yeah.
and then yeah, the lava that's pretty much makes up the whole island, or most of the island, right?
And for those of you who haven't felt like lava rock, like growing up in the Midwest, I didn't experience lava rock until pretty late in my life. It's still dense and hard like rock, or not dense, it's still hard like rock, but it's very light and porous. It's not dense at all and feels a lot like sandpaper. It's really coarse.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a really unique growing environment because you've got, the island is really tiny and very thin. And so you've got, in terms of location, it's about the same latitude as Malta, which is further south than the southernmost tip of Italy. It's also about the latitude of Gibraltar, so the southern tip of Spain. I know Gibraltar's not Spain, but so really hot. But
so further south than some of the hottest climate wines that are available on the mass market.
Right. The difference is it's a tiny island, so you've got the ocean all the way around it, moderating the temperature. But then you got the problem of these winds that kick up, usually every afternoon, that are really fierce. And so then you get into this little guy over there.
Some vines, yeah.
Right. The vines there are grown on the ground, no trellising, and they're grown, that's a miniature version for display, but they're grown in what little woven baskets like this, on the ground, with the grapes actually protected in the center of the loop to protect them from the wind, from destroying them. So it's a really unique, very low yields per acre, and that has a lot to do with the characteristics of the wine.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about it as we keep going, but we're going to go into wine number one. Again, as stupid Americans that don't speak any other languages, our pronunciation is horrible. Grant, however, has some Greek heritage and has traveled to Santorini in the past, so he's going to pronounce things for us.
Right, well, I'm going to try. So this is Spyros Hatziyiannis, all right? And my understanding of this wine is a little special. He makes his wine or his bottle at another winery, so it's, yeah, we should say that part.
No, that's fine. That's common. I mean, a lot of people do that here too, right? They grow their own grapes, they buy grapes, and they're friends with an established winemaker, and make the wines at another facility. 100% Assyrtiko, which is all I know. It's like a white varietal that's popular in Santorini. Do you know anything about the characteristics of this Assyrtiko in general?
Well, I can tell you in general, the wines there are very acidic, and the reason is there's no potassium, almost no potassium in the soil. And so that produces a really high acidity, so we'll see if that shows through in the characteristic of the wine.
All right.
Should be no oak in this wine, right?
As far as I know, a little bit that I read, he's going to slow the whole show down.
Important. Yeah, he poured me low.
Slow your roll. All right. Yeah, the acidity is showing on the nose, and as is some minerality. This is pretty cool, and like a dark orange note, like full-on citrus, but not like the lime citrus you get in a lot of whites from North America, some of the colder climates in France and Germany.
There's a weird scent in it. Also, it reminds me of old bananas.
I was going to say I wasn't expecting it. It's almost buttery.
Yeah.
There's sort of a richness or deepness that I wasn't expecting. The color is, it's sort of not caramel, but like a really light, like buttery.
Yeah, buttery.
Sort of, yeah.
Kind of like Chardonnay in color. Like, yeah, visually, you could pass this off for Chardonnay pretty easily, I think.
And just me, or does it have like a gassy smell, almost like a propane-y sort of smell to it, just a little bit?
I can see that.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah. A very interesting smell, your sense on this, like not typical of anything I've ever smelled before in wine. Very unique.
I should make this clear. This one was not received as a sample. I picked this up from a little old French guy at a store in Seattle who, he's got family in Bordeaux, drinks a lot of Bordeaux, he's been selling wine his whole life, got access to stuff from all the world. Said, I picked this up and he's like, oh, Santorini, I like to serve this wine on Thanksgiving. Fascinating. So, And I can kind of see that. There's a good acidity, but there, on the other hand, there's like some really good richness. I think some of that orange fruit's coming through. I'm getting some apple flavors as well, and a little, like a hint of bitterness, like from the orange peel. Maybe you bit a little too far down into the orange. A little floral note as well. Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty unusual combination of flavors, exactly what you're describing. And it's not as, I was expecting something a little more crisp, clean, light, and this has definitely a richness, which I like. A little different than what I was looking for, and I don't know that it's typical of this varietal, actually. So I'd be interested to taste it against some other Assyrtikos from Santorini and see how it compares.
It's got like a metallic minerality to it on the finish as well. And I agree with your flavor descriptors as far as the fruit. Interesting wine, but yeah, the acidity is
so something that's
very interesting.
That's questioning my mind too. Like we're all tasting a bit of this richness. Like last week we talked about there being some malolactic, and we were like, we don't think there's oak on this. Do you think this richness comes from either oak or malolactic fermentation? I'm leaning towards no, but I'm not 100%. I'm curious.
I really don't think so for several reasons. First of all, if it's properly labeled, it should say either Reserva or Grand Reserve if there's any oak on it.
Nice.
All right, so it doesn't say that. I read the label. So it should be no oak on this. Also, given that this was bottled at the Santo Wines Winery on Santorini, which I've been to, and it's a co-op is what it is.
Cool.
So I think in this case it's kind of a combination of what typically happens is the really tiny farmers, these people have like half an acre of grapes.
Wow.
And they go out there and they pick the grapes, and literally some of them still put them on the back of the donkey, some on the back of the small pickup, and they bring them in, they weigh them, they get paid by the kilo, by the Santo Wines Cooperative, and then they will either choose to blend the grapes or make a vineyard designate, let's say, or a proprietor designate out of those grapes, and they produce a whole wide range of wines. In this case, I think this guy is making, at that winery, he doesn't appear to have his own winery, or at least it's bottled there. We're not really sure. We couldn't find any info on that. So I think it's probably unlikely he's doing it in barrels.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, makes sense, but still pretty good. Not a whole lot of excitement for me. Huge nerd value, so like tasty and
very
interesting
unique
and unique. All in all, 87 points. It's clean, it's well put together, but it's not getting any excitement from me.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to play on what you said earlier about the proprietor telling you that he serves it with Thanksgiving. Yeah, I totally see that. There's two wines I serve with Thanksgiving turkey. Is either a Oregon Pinot Noir or a Chardonnay. And this has a lot of characteristics of a Chardonnay, as you were pointing out earlier.
It actually,
and I see how this stands up to a turkey.
Sure.
I completely see that. I don't think he's off base at all.
It would probably actually be really good with the turkey, like some of those darker citrus flavors. I think would work really well with.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly fond of it, honestly. I like it, but I think what Dan said is pretty much key. It's like huge nerd value, very unique wine, but not really any fireworks or anything for me. 85 points.
And I'm going to say that it's a solid. It's put together. There's no flaws in it. It's got some nice characters. I see it in the right environment. I could sip on this wine. There's nothing really distinctive or standing out about it. So I'm right in there, probably 85 to 86.
Right. And I want to say too, like this is probably like $12. So you know, if you're into exploring new wines or wines from new regions, you know the price of entry is pretty low here. I'd say definitely give it a shot, check it out, educate yourself, enjoy the experience. Like I could drink through the rest of this bottle enjoyably, you know, no problem.
Absolutely.
So at that price, definitely worth checking out.
Probably pretty fun in a blind lineup too.
Totally. Yeah. You confuse all of your friends.
Completely.
Make some of them angry at you probably. We're going to move on to some dessert wines now. So this is Vinsanto, but not the Vinsanto that everyone knows about. And that's kind of how this tasting got started. I was emailing with Constance talking about like what would be some good wines that we can put on our show, you know, to promote some of the stuff that you're involved with marketing for. And like, did you know that that Vinsanto from Santorini is the original Vinsanto, and that the Italian stuff came later? I'm like, no, that's fascinating. What an interesting idea for a show. What a great thing to explore. So here it is. We've got a Vinsanto from Santorini, and we've got an Italian Vinsanto, and we're going to compare them and talk about the differences.
Cool.
So this first one is?
So very similar name in a way. This is, sorry, I need my glasses.
Sure.
From the same town, Pyrgos on Santorini, and it's Hatzidakis.
Wow.
That's the name of the winery.
Matt, you nailed that one.
Yep, got it.
Okay. I can never, we got
Yeah, I would have tore that one up.
little tiny dessert glasses here. And apparently these are the grapes are dried out on the sidewalk, which was kind of an interesting thing. Grant showed us a picture of that earlier. Similar to it was Amarone they do that with too, right? The Italians do that.
It's a different process, but yeah,
Okay.
the wines from the Veneto in Italy are also typically dried to some extent, depending on which is the Amarone or the Ricciotto, which is their dessert wine, or another. But those are dried inside.
Okay.
Yeah, like in sheds.
Right, and typically for a longer period, versus these are dried outside 10 to 15 days.
Directly in the sun.
Directly in the sun, and remember we talked about latitude, it's hot.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
And high, right?
Producing the raisins probably pretty fast.
Yes, and it is a totally different grape varieties between the two Vinsantos that we're going to taste.
Mm-hmm.
This, despite what you see in the color, is made from all green grapes. Right? So the
Some
predominant
Assyrtiko goes in there.
Yep, the predominant should be Assyrtiko. And then the other two varieties that you may have in combination, one or the other, are Edani and Etheri.
Which, you know, I don't have any experience with, so here we go. Definitely a lot of the port-like characteristics coming up. You know, like higher alcohol is showing some caramelized flavors. This is finished in oak.
I'm getting
Absolutely.
raisins, prunes, that sort of
nice.
thing.
Yeah,
I'm
big
definitely
time
getting high
prunes.
alcohol as well.
Old leather.
Really nice raisin scents, actually. And yeah, wow, the leather, yeah, you nailed it with the leather. It's really good. And a lot of times, you know, I'm pretty critical of alcohol on the nose, but with dessert wines, I kind of take that leap. I'm willing to allow a little more, and the richness of the scents coming off definitely work well with it, where it's intriguing on the nose.
A rich, inviting nose. It's delicious smelling.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, that is a beautiful. I love the crispness
Wow.
of the finish. I don't expect that. It's very
Long.
crisp, very clean, very long.
The way the acidity takes over the tongue after it's swallowed,
Way late.
it's pretty
Yeah.
wild. Yeah, that's a very strange sensation.
This is fascinating. So I'm getting like the raisins and the prunes early, some of that leather as it moves across the middle of the palate. I'm like, oh, this is dark and kind of rugged and heavy. And then the acidity comes in slowly and it changes from like dark oranges, dark raisins, and I'm seriously getting like limes at the end, like it's cleaning up and it's bright
Solid.
and delicious on
Limes.
the finish.
Limes is
That's
a great
a
description
great
for the finish.
call. I would have never got that. It is limes.
The evolution on this is fantastic.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
surprisingly delicious.
And
And
that's
nailed it
a-
with the description. That's
Yep. You know, one thing with a lot of dessert wines is the sugar masks a
The
lot of
alcohol.
flaws.
Oh, yeah,
The
exactly.
alcohol,
Yep.
which can be a flaw, and other flaws. And you just say, oh, it's sweet, it's good, it's tasty, and it's dessert. But if you really get down to it, then you get through the sugar and get to the wine. This one, I don't see the flaws. I see a solid wine.
Yeah, it starts off super dark in character, very sweet. The
Wow.
acidity in the finish, though, just cleans everything out, leaves the tongue just asking for more.
The heat from the nose isn't showing at all.
That's
I'm
delicious.
so impressed.